Hey there, guys and gals. This is part 2 of our interview with Todd Snively. If you haven't heard part 1 yet, make sure to go back and check that out first. As always, remember to subscribe to I Know This Guy wherever you get your podcasts. It really helps us out. Now, for the rest of the show.
I'll never forget this moment. He took a bite of his tuna salad sandwich and said, "Why don't you sell stuff on eBay?" And I was like, "What? eBay?" He goes, "Yeah, I think I've read about people making money on eBay. They list stuff for sale, it sells, and you make money." I go, "Oh, all right, I'll look into that," thinking I'm never going to look into that, right? But I drove home and I started to look around at some of the extra stuff we had laying around that now meant nothing to me. And stuff that assholes buy. I had a framed $500 bill. Yeah, $500 bill. No, I'm sorry, it was a $1,000 bill. It had Woodrow Wilson on it. Stupid shit like that, right? Who buys a framed $1,000 bill? I think I paid $2,500 for it. Anyway, that was the very first thing I listed on eBay. And I listed it for a penny and let it just go on auction for 7 days. And I think it sold for I want to say $1,250, which happened to be exactly what it was worth. I paid way too much for it. I guess the frame was nice. I don't know. Anyway, that and some other stuff that I just had laying around. And I was shocked. Everything sold, and it sold for more money than I was expecting. So I said, "Oh, there's something to this. I can take it. I can figure out some processes, and I think I can turn this into something that might make a decent income." So I got on the computer and I started to look for I think I Googled wholesale used products or something. I don't know what I was doing, but I found this guy. I know this guy now, and had never met him. Right? I wonder where I heard that. I had never met him. Just found him on Google. Got on a phone call with him. Told him my exact situation, and he said, "Okay, I'm going to help you out. I have a truckload, 26 pallets of returned goods from Sam's Club. It's a good load. And I said, "How much is it?" And I'm trying to think back. I think it was $6,000. And I'd asked my wife, I said, "Hey, do you still have that last credit card?" And she goes, "Yeah." I go, "How much is on there credit wise?" And I think there was around 11 was the very last card, right? To this day, by the way, I still cannot get an American Express card. Those guys have a memory like an elephant. Anyway, so I put the 6,000 on her credit card, and he said, "Okay, the 26 pallets they're on their way. They're headed to your home. Should be there in 3 days, maybe 4." So I get off the phone, said to the wife, "Okay, I did it." She goes, "What'd you just do?" I said, "I bought these 26 pallets." She goes, "Where are you going to put them?" I said, "Well, we're getting rid of all of our cars." I said, "I'll use the 3-car garage." And she goes, "Well, how big is a pallet?" And I said, "I have no clue." She goes, "Well, you better figure it out." So I get online again, find out a pallet's 4x4, maybe 5, 6, 8 foot tall, right? But 4x4. I go out and I measure my garage. I could fit 12, 12 of the 26 in there. I go back in and she goes, "Well, how'd that go?" I said, "Not good." She goes, "What are you going to do?" I said, "Well, I'm see if I can find more space." Now, back at that time, it was a bit of a recession and there was lots of warehouse space available. And I found one really close by. It was just a box, no offices or anything like that. And it was an older guy who still did business with a handshake. So literally, after seeing the place for 20 minutes, he gave me the key. And I don't even remember if I gave me any money. I'm pretty sure he said, I told him my situation also. He says, "I'll take 30 days, Okay, fine." So then I go home, told my wife I got this space. And she goes, "Great. How are you going to unload the truck?" Woman, stop with the problems. So I call a place to rent a forklift. And they're like, no, you don't want to rent a forklift. He goes, "It's really expensive. You got to pay us to bring it out, unload it. Then it's by the hour. And then we got to come pick it up. Just buy a used one." So how much is a good used one? He sold me a good used forklift for $2,000, and he took my wife's last credit card, right? So they delivered the forklift. The truck is scheduled to show up 3 hours later. So I took those 3 hours to figure out how to drive this forklift. I'd never driven one before. It's not as easy as it looks, I don't think. So I'm messing around, And I'm thinking, I'm going to hurt myself or hurt somebody. All of a sudden it hit me. I'm sitting in this empty warehouse with this forklift, waiting for 26 pallets of gosh knows what to show up, hoping that what I'm about to do is going to work. I had no idea. I had literally sold 9 items out of my house on eBay. And now I just ordered 26 pallets, you know? So anyway, the truck shows up and the driver opens the doors and he sees me coming at him and he does one of these. So I stop. He says, "Is this your first time running a forklift?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, get off that thing. I want to be home before midnight. So he was kind enough to unload these 26 pallets, and he did it like in no time. I totally understood where he was coming from. And there I was alone again. And it was late. And I started ripping open the pallets. And after I opened the first couple, I kind of looked at what was there. And I said, you know what? This might be okay. This might work. So I immediately just started going through and listing stuff on eBay. And after a couple of weeks of seeing how fast and how much things were selling for versus what I had paid, I knew how many listings I had to make every single day in order just to break even on life, paying attorneys, paying other people, our living expenses. And I did not leave that warehouse. If I got there at 5:30 in the morning and I had to stay till midnight, I did not leave until I hit that goal of the number of listings that I knew I had to make. Finally, after a few months, we got some breathing room and I was able to hire some employees to do the packing and the listing and things like that. And that was a huge, huge relief. So long story short, mostly because of a deal that I was able to make with QVC to buy all of their customer returned Birkenstocks. There were some other brands too, but basically women's shoes. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you've ever seen how a woman buys shoes online, but she'll order 10 pair, maybe try them all on once and send 8 pair back. Like, okay, I like these 2, right? And QVC had this policy that if somebody returned shoes, they wouldn't even try to resell them or even open the box. It went right on a liquidation pallet. And I was buying those things for 15 cents on the dollar, sometimes better, selling them for 80 to 90 cents on the dollar because they were in essence brand new shoes, right? You could, that was the description 90% of the time on eBay. It's a QVC customer return item that looks like the woman never even opened the box, right? So Birkenstocks were, I thought, very ugly, but I came to call them my little gold bricks because I made so much money and learned so much about women's shoes. It was crazy, more than I ever thought I would. But in any event, it took about 11 months of doing this, and we hit $1 million in sales. I couldn't believe it. Could not believe it. And I was still, to a certain extent, in this post-traumatic stress state because it was always something. Every time the phone rang, I'm like, God, is that going to be the lawyer? What is it? Is that going to be American Express again, wanting their 50 grand? It was just, that's the way it was. I was determined at that point, once I saw that, okay, I've got maybe a viable way to come out of this, not to go bankrupt. So I never filed bankruptcy, not ever. I just wanted to pay everybody back and work it out. Well, right around the end of 2004, my lawyer made it clear to me that the government was going to want me to have some sort of punishment. We didn't know what, but it was coming and I needed to prepare. And at that time, I just started to dabble with Google AdSense. And without turning this into a clinic on AdSense, if you have websites and you put advertising from Google onto it, Google will pay you when people click on those ads. Turned out to be an amazing business back then, but I, again, had no idea how short term it would be. So we ended up selling off the distribution business, the eBay business, and going full time into the AdSense business. Remember what I said before? I try to follow the money, right? To me, that was a dream business. No customers, no products, nothing. I could sit at the computer all day long, make money. Dream business. So I went all in on that. Well, in January 2005, I found out that they wanted me to go plead guilty to 1 count of mail fraud. And the prosecutor, short story, there was no plea deal or anything. He just said, if you agree to go in and plead straight up guilty without a plea deal and leave your punishment up to the judge, we won't go after any of your other employees, nothing like that. Okay, that's good, because one of my employees was a relative and couldn't stand the thought of what might happen. So I said, okay, I'll do that. I finally was understanding you need to take responsibility sometimes. So yeah, in January, I didn't even have my lawyer with me. My lawyer said, it's no big deal. Just go in there, plead guilty. You'll be out in 5 minutes. So I went in, I pled guilty. And as I was walking out, the FBI was standing there. And it turns out that one of my former clients that I'd lost money with had a friend that was an FBI agent. And he was there for some payback. And he basically, yeah, he says, you're not free to go. I said, the judge said I was free to go. He goes, nope, we're taking you in and we're processing you. Because I guess the way it would have worked is a couple of days later, the court would have called and say, hey, run down to the FBI, get your picture taken. They're going to take your prints and all of that. They call that processing. Because they didn't take me into custody when I pled guilty. They set a sentencing date, right? Because nobody knew what was going to happen to me yet. So anyway, this guy, I'm not going to go too deep into this story, but this guy basically treated me like the street thug. Anyway, so after that, now here it is, January 2005. They set my sentencing for October. So now I have from January to October to kind of, 1, get my affairs in order, and 2, try to minimize the sentence. Can I get people to write me letters? Can I write a letter to the judge? What can we do to kind of show the judge it was irrational thinking. I made bad decisions, but I wasn't trying to hurt anybody. So we did everything we could, and the AdSense business continued to grow. So I felt, okay, that'll be all right. So October 15th, no, I'm sorry, this would have been August, right around August 15th, I went in and for my sentencing. The judge comes in, right? You stand up. He says, sit down. He tells me to stand up. And he goes, yeah, this won't take long. I read the file. I don't see any reason not to give you the maximum sentence, which was 60 months. 60 months in federal prison. And he asked me a weird thing. The only other thing he said to me was, how old are you? I think I just turned 40. I'd have to do the math, but I think I just turned 40. And he said to me, oh, you'll be fine. You'll do your time, you get out, you'll still be young. You'll be fine. It was like he had just justified 60-month sentence in his mind. And then he left.
And just like that, he just walked in and gave you 60 months?
Like it was handing out candy, right? Everybody was setting expectations for me for the sentence. They go, oh, it's your first time. You'll get probation. If you get any time, it'll be 6 months and they'll give you home confinement. Don't worry about it. And I listened to these people. So my mind was, okay, 6 months. I need to be punished. I did something wrong. I'll accept my punishment. When he said 60 months, I was right back into post-traumatic stress. My brain just like locked down and I couldn't think. And then, he asked me that question. And after he said, yeah, you'll be fine. I remember the one thing I said to him was, yeah, you're right. It'll be okay. And then, then my lawyer hopped up and said, can he turn himself in? Because the police were like headed towards me. Can he please just turn himself in? And the judge said, oh, yeah. You'll get a letter. It'll tell you when to report to prison. So go home, wait for your letter. I'm like, oh, geez. Oh. Good times. So, yeah, so basically that was August. I got my quote unquote, my affairs in order, right? Wanted to make sure my family was going to be taken care of. And I thought we had enough money, for 60 months. And I think it was October 15th, 2005, I took myself to prison. It was the weirdest day of my life. I mean, just totally strange. And I hope anybody listening to this never has to go through.
What was it like knowing that your life was going to change 100% in moments?
I tried to prepare, do the research, find people that had been in and been out, especially of that specific facility, tried to learn what I could so that there wouldn't be this huge culture shock, right? So I felt I was as prepared as I could be. But at the same time, I got to tell you, it was nice to know just about every responsibility I had was about to be removed from me. I could literally go in there and work on myself in every way that was important, physically, mentally, every way. And so on one hand, I remember the morning of, right? I got up and for half a second, I thought, maybe I should go visit Norm in Canada, right? But then I said, no, that's that irrational thinking again. You got to smack that down. You got to stop that. And so I called a cab, and the cab pulls up. And where to? I'm like, take me to this prison. He goes, oh, who are you visiting? I go, a friend. So he pulls me up to the main gate, right? The lobby, if you will. I'm getting out, and he says to me, you want me to wait for you? I couldn't help but laugh because I wanted to say, you got 5 years to wait around for me? And I said, no, it's okay. I'm going to be a while, is what I said. Oh. And I walked in. I walked into prison, and they process you in. The surrealism began. It was one of the most dysfunctional experiences, long-term experiences I've ever had. Imagine a small city full of nothing but people with huge personality issues, and you're living with them, and you can't get away from them. Okay, that's what it was like. And if I had to put another word on it, it was boring. I mean, just a lot of boring. If you couldn't figure out how to be productive with all this downtime, you were going to have problems. But a lot of, I'm going to call it pretend help. They could do so much of a better job. But long story short, they had a program. It was called the Residential Drug Assistance Program. And the whole idea behind this program was if you were a drug addict or a alcoholic, they wanted to put you through this rehab in residential rehab and counseling. And if you successfully completed the program, they would take up to a year off of your sentence. And I'm thinking, I wish I was a drug addict, but I'd never touched any drug in my entire life. So they interview everybody. So they call me in for the interview. And he's like, so what kind of drugs do you do? I said, I've never touched a drug in my life. And he kind of looked at me and gave me a weird look. Like, later I came to find out the weird look was like, dude, I'm trying to get you into this program. You shouldn't be trying to get yourself out, right? And then he asked me, well, alcohol, you drink, right? And he's nodding his head. You drink, right? Like, yeah, I've been known to drink. He goes, well, how often would you say you drink? It's a lot, right? I said, can you define a lot? He goes, well, according to the Residential Drug Abuse Assistance Program, a lot would be 1 to 2 drinks a week. I said, oh yeah, I drink a metric crap ton then. He goes, you're in, Mr. Snively. Congratulations. Not only are you a felon, but you're officially an alcoholic now. I'm like, okay, I think I can probably live with that one. Then you sit around waiting for your turn to go into this program. And it's interesting because as boring as I said, it was still interesting enough that I think you could have written a TV show about. Matter of fact, they did Orange is the New Black, but they kind of They made it much more extreme than it really is. But the people that I met politicians, judges, lots of lawyers, movie stars.
In prison?
Oh, yeah. Athletes. I'm not going to say names, but there was huge football teams. I mean, you would know, right? You would know who these people were. I will name one because it was very, very public. Wesley Snipes, was in that facility. So anyway, he came in right after I left. He could have got my bed for all I know. One more was very public. He was, I believe, the president of a company called Exide Battery. And his whole thing was a bribery case involving Sears. Yeah, Sears. So Sears and Exide Battery did some sort of, nasty. And the CEO ended up in prison. So there was all kinds of different people. It wasn't all drug dealers or whatnot. I met one guy once who he had 17 years for poaching alligators in Florida. I mean, I didn't know the stuff you can go to prison for. It's just unreal. I'm not saying that you should kill alligators, but in any event, all I wanted to do was get out. I made sure that I didn't do anything that would keep me there one day longer. So I ended up spending between the good time and the residential drug treatment program time off. I spent a total of 3 years and 4 days in actual confinement. And I got to transfer to a halfway house in Michigan where another friend of mine had agreed to hire me into his company so that I could have employment. Okay, because if you have employment, you can get out of the halfway house and be put on home confinement to where you're allowed to go to work and then come home and you can't leave at night. And that was 6 months. So I did that for 6 months. Now, this guy, while he had his own kind of side business that he hired me into, had a full-time job. And so basically, I would go with him to work, and I was sitting at a little card table next to his desk in his office with a computer. Because he said to me when I got out, he goes, "Let me go show you where I work and the little card table you'll be sitting at for the next 6 months." I'm like, okay, cool. So he walks me through this company. It turns out that it's a warehouse business, and I guess they sold things to golf courses like grass seed and chemicals and fungicides and weed killer and everything a golf course would need. So he's showing me around, and in one part of the warehouse, there was this empty room. I'd say maybe 3,000 square foot, completely empty and totally enclosed from the rest of the warehouse. And I'm like, well, what's this room for? He goes, not sure. It used to be a parts room. The company before ran, I think it was lawnmowers. So people would come in and buy parts for their lawnmowers. I don't know what we're going to do with it. So he walks me into the last part of the tour was to meet the owner of the company, whose name was also Todd. And he knew my story because he had to approve me being there in his building at the little card table sitting next to his employee's desk, right? So this is a good guy, right? He's helping me out. My friend's helping me out. We talked for a couple of minutes, and then I asked him, I say, hey, let me ask you this. I said, what are you going to do with that empty space there in your next to your warehouse? He goes, I don't know. He goes, we might make it a break room or a training room, but no real idea and no short-term plans. He goes, why? I said, would you consider leasing it to me? He goes, leasing it to you? Now he's thinking, oh, here's this guy just got out of prison. What's he asking me about leasing this space, right? He goes, what are you going to do with it? And I said, I'm going to start a distribution company. And he kind of laughed. He goes, no, you're not. I said, yeah, I am, an online distribution company. He goes, you can't do that. I said, yes, I can. I said, I've done it before. So he said to me, this was all, I'm telling you, literally, this is the conversation on the spot. And he says to me, I'll tell you what, I will give you that space rent free. I will let my employees use my forklifts to unload the trucks of the stuff that you're saying is going to come here. They'll bring it to you because I want to see what you're going to do. I hope you succeed. I can't believe you're going to succeed. Nobody just says they're going to start a distribution business and have it happen. And this was a Friday afternoon. He goes, when do you want to start? I said, Monday. I got to show up here Monday. Might as well start Monday. So my friend, as he's driving me back to my house, my home confinement place, he said to me, he goes, how are you going to do that? And I said, I don't know yet. I got to find somebody that's got some money that's willing to work with me. He goes, I'll do it. He goes, are credit cards good enough? He goes, because I got lots of available credit. I said, you do that? He goes, yeah, for 50%. All right. So he kind of made his deal right there. Now, we're not going to go down that road too far. But so I made the deal. What am I going to do? Right. I was kind of back against the wall kind of a thing. So we started that Monday. I had a laptop on the little card table in his office, and I started to look for customer returned goods to buy and just started to run up his credit cards. And the goods showed up 3 to 4 days later. And it was just like 2002 all over. Big space, pallets and pallets and pallets. And I'm the one cutting into them, going through everything, but I really knew what I was doing. So it was much, much faster. In the 11 months of this time, we get $2 million, right? And it was a lot easier to bring employees in and whatnot. It grew really fast. And it actually got to the point where I think when we hit a little over 3 million run rate a year, it literally became unmanageable because you had all of these people inspecting these customer return goods. And one guy might think, oh, that's used like new. This other guy might say, oh, no, that's used acceptable. And when you didn't have enough standardization, enough processes in place, you'd have nothing but problems. And so I got so frustrated at one point, I said, I'm shutting it down. I said, this is crazy. We're having a lot of revenue, but a lot of the margins shrinking because customer return. Now, when you get a customer return on a customer returned good, that's telling you something. You got some problems in your processes, right? So I literally shut everything down, shipped everything that was still there to eBay. That stuff would still continue to sell. And then both Todd and my friend came to me and said, well, what are you going to do? I said, we have to start selling brand new items. I'm going to immediately start looking for brand new name brand products to purchase and sell. And Todd looked at me and said, why don't you sell my products? And I looked at him and said, what do you sell again? I had no idea what was in his warehouse. And he goes, let me show you. So, so now he took me on a tour and showed me everything he had. And he had a lot of stuff that would appeal to consumers. And I said, okay. I said, can you give me a good price? We need to be profitable. He says, if I can cover my costs, he goes, I'll sell to you at, I think it was 5% over cost. Oh, it's fantastic. So all I had to do the very next minute was take his price list and every item that he had and start listing it on eBay at the prevailing rates. Whatever sold that day, like when I would come in the next morning, I would run a sales report and see what sold. I would hand it to one of his employees who would go into the warehouse side, pick all those products, wheel them over to me, and then later in the day, accounting would give me an invoice with 60-day terms. All right. Now, did I get a little preferential treatment because of knowing the owner of the distribution company? Yeah, for sure. Okay. But I still could have done this, right? As a matter of fact, I did do this with other distribution companies, and people are doing it today. You don't need to have a sweet deal, but it really helped me getting going. So literally, I had to buy no inventory ahead of time, right? We were just shipping what he would bring us. So I started doing this without outside distributors. Now we're storing a little bit and whatnot. One day, now every now and then there's a day that changes your entire life. And this was the day. I went looking for products. This was actually right before we had switched over to all the brand new stuff. And I found a place called liquidation.com. And it's where you go on and you bid on pallets of, you can get used goods, you can get surplus and some new stuff. So I bought some pallets. This was still customer return goods at the time. And they came in, and every single box on those pallets were an Amazon box. And I was looking at this and didn't quite understand what I was looking at, because I was like, what, doesn't Amazon just sell books or electronics, or, why is this blender here? Why is all this beauty stuff on this pallet? All in Amazon boxes. So I went back on Amazon, and this is what also helped me make that decision to make that switch, is that everything that I had just bought used, I could resell on Amazon as used. And the stuff that I had bought as new, I could resell on Amazon as new. And that became the new model. So we immediately, this was in 2009, end of 2009, immediately set up on Amazon and started looking for the new products to sell, while we did sell some of the customer return goods on there also. But that was when life changed. Life absolutely changed. Todd came to me, I think it was maybe a year later, 2010. He said, I have the opportunity to merge with another company. It's a whole different line of products. I'm going to give you an inventory file with your cost, and I want you to tell me how much money can we make selling this stuff online. Because the company he was merging with was all brick and mortar type stuff. They did nothing online, nothing. I ran that file using some software I had to develop to be able to run these files fast to see what would be profitable. And I couldn't believe with my eyes what I was seeing. I said, Todd, this is some of the most profitable stuff I've ever seen. Go merge. Go merge with that company, right? So he went and he did the deal. And that was when my Amazon business hit 8 figures, right? Once I got this other line of products in there, it was crazy, absolutely crazy. So long story short, the company he merged with wanted to buy me. When they saw the amount of the orders that I was placing, they didn't know it was me at first. They said, who's this guy? Oh yeah, that's Todd in the warehouse. I'd met him one time. He had walked through one time, shook my hand like it was the street sweeper, right? Turned around, I never saw him again until he found out that I was the one, buying millions and millions of dollars of product. Then he came and met me for real and wanted to buy my company. I said, why do you want to buy my company? He said, my accountant looked at my books, and because of everything we sell is seasonal, we basically lose hundreds of thousands of dollars every month in November, December, January, February. I said, oh, that's funny. Those are my best months. He goes, I know. So long story short, they tried to steal my company from me. Both of them tried to steal my company from me. The documents they put together were not reflective of our discussions of what the deal would be. When I wanted to take the documents to my own lawyer to look at, they both got outraged and say, after all we've done for you, just sign it now.
You got to be kidding.
I'm not joking. I'm not joking. So I found a lawyer that was referred to me to be like the best business contract lawyer. And he said to me, he goes, do you want me just to tell you what these papers say, or do you want me to tell you if it's a good deal or not? I can give you that consulting too. I say, yeah, give me both. 3 days later, he calls me up, and those were his words. They're trying to steal your company. He pussyfoot around it at all. And he pointed out the obfuscation and everything in the documents. When I called them out on it, when I said, this is what my lawyer said, what do you guys have to say about it? They said, get your business out of our warehouse. We're done. What? Really? We can't talk about this? No. So that was in 2015. So the one guy I ended up buying out. I gave him a lot of money and he was out. So I had 100% now. For the first time in a long time, I had 100% of my business. I moved it to a different warehouse. I then called those guys. I called their biggest competitor. I called them up and I said, I want to open an account, and let me tell you why. Because at first they said no. I said, well, meet me for 10 minutes. I got a story. I'm like, all right. So I went over to like their senior vice president. And this, by the way, is an $11 billion a year company that I'm talking to now. The other business was maybe 500 million, 600 million a year, right? Todd's business. So I go to the other business, 11 billion a year. I said, let me tell you what just happened to me. That your competitor. And the guy sat there and he listened and he said, yeah, I'll help you. And then he said, what were they charging you? I said, 5% over cost. He goes, I'll sell to you at cost. I said, why? And he said, because our business is rebates. He goes, all of the manufacturers that we deal with, it's all a rebate play. We need volume. Now think about this for a second. I just went from two clowns trying to steal my business to getting my business back and ending up with a deal that has automatic baked in profit. And not only that, but I learned about this thing called rebates. So one day I'm in my new warehouse. Things are never better, right? And one of these manufacturer, I'm not going to say who the manufacturer is, but I guarantee you, everybody would know who this manufacturer is. They're so huge. The rep walks into my warehouse, and it happened to be one of the brands that had a clause in the contract that says you're not allowed to sell our brand online. Okay. And I'm thinking, I think I'm about to lose this deal. But he comes in and he says, I want to thank you for the amazing job you've done representing our brand and the volume that you've been selling. And I would like to offer you a rebate program. I'm like, what? So all of a sudden now I'm in the rebate game with these major brands, and it's an amazing game. People ask me all the time, how can these people sell at break even on Amazon? That's what my supplier's selling to me for. And I'm like, rebates. 9 times out of 10, the answer is going to be rebates. It's an amazing underground profit that many people don't know about. So in any event, it got to the point where I started looking into other profit centers within Amazon. And I'm not going to tell this story right now. All I'm going to say is I accidentally created a private label brand. It was pure accident. Okay. But once I got it created and the thing started to make $135,000 a month, my one private label brand, I started to look at private label training because I wanted to figure out what is it that I maybe don't know that I should know. In the program that I ended up buying into to answer that question for me, what I discovered was, no, I'm doing everything okay. But a lot of people aren't, and they were really struggling. And so to the ones that were like, I'm about to give up. I lost the money testing this brand of mine, and oh my gosh, I don't know what to do. And I go, you should try name brand wholesale. It's a lot more straightforward. And I started to talk about it. Eventually, one of the people in this group started a separate Facebook group, and it was embarrassingly called Todd is the Amazon boss of us. And she invited these 300 to 400 people into the group that I've been interacting with over time. And I said to her, the first thing we need to do is change the name of this group. Right? I appreciate that, but no, right? And it was another pivotal point. So at that point, I started working, with 300 to 400 people, showing them what I was doing with name brand wholesale, finding these products that we're already selling, analyzing them, and making a deal with a wholesale distributor to purchase them. And people that were failing at private label for whatever reason, right, were being successful with the wholesale model. So I started to spend more and more time and ended up hooking up with my business partner, Chris Keefe. I call him the amazing Chris Keefe. And together we had the same mindset. We were kind of doing the same thing on a parallel. And we figured, we believe in synergy. Two can do the work of more than two. 1 + 1 is like 4. So I was a little leery of getting another business partner. Matter of fact, it was one of those things when what had happened to me before, I was like, I'm never going to have another business partner in my life. And here I am meeting the amazing Chris Keefe, hearing all of the right things, right? And saying, yeah, okay, let's work together, right? And I can honestly say now, 5 years now, I've been working with him, and I have never had a finer business partner. He is one of the nicest guys you would ever want to meet, who has a true heart for helping people. I love Star Trek, right? And people have compared us and said if we were Star Trek characters, he'd be Deanna Troi, Counselor Deanna Troi, and I would be Spock. And I'm okay with that. At least it's a guy character, right? Chris gets to be the chick. Anyway, so we sat down and we said, this is taking up so much time, and to do this right, we're going to have to create a paid training program. So we made our first paid training program and said to the people in the group, here it is. I mean, it's, if you like it, fine. If you don't, that's okay too. But this is what we have to do moving forward, because we're capitalists. Our time is important, blah, blah, blah. And I also had a feeling that it had the potential to affect my core Amazon business. And I thought about this for a long time. And I said, well, even if it does, as long as I'm getting compensated for the consulting, I'll call it a wash and be okay with it. Because at that point, I had 100% outsourced and insourced my core Amazon business. To this day, I do nothing. I literally wake up, and during breakfast, I look at my financials. I look at a balance sheet and a P&L. I read them like the newspaper. If I don't see any red flags, that's it. That's it for my business. It then becomes all about helping our paid members. And of those 400 people that were in that group, those were the first 300 that became paid members. 3 out of 4 went with Chris and I. And most of those people are still with us on this journey 5 years later, and just been more and more and more. We develop more and more software. We figure out different profit centers and ways to help people. We've developed our software to like a 10th generation wholesale product analyzing tool that blows my mind, because I think about what I had to use when I first started, and we're in just such a good spot right now. And I've seen reasons why people are successful and why they're not. And it blows my mind now, because it's like being able to read the newspaper. Now, I can't prejudge anybody, and I would never do that, because if I would, I know I'd be wrong almost all the time. You cannot do that. Anybody has the same, I think, opportunity, the same starting point. It's the things along the way. Les Brown, you got to be hungry. If you sit on an idea or fail to act on a goal, it's not really goal setting, is it? It's just wishful thinking. So we see a lot of that, right? So the first thing I had to do was to get out of my mind that everybody was going to be successful. Well, I cannot stop working with this person until they're successful. You know what? A lot of time you can't take somebody that's not ready, right? And pull them across that finish line. Life isn't like that. It just isn't. So we just concentrate on doing the best job that we can, helping as many people become successful as we can. And we've been doing that, like I said, for over 5 years now. And I'll tell you one other thing. I have one other huge failure that I do want to mention is my wife. Everything was just too much,
I could just imagine. I was going to ask you about that. How did she take it? So,
well, it was hard. It was really, really hard. And there was a lot of baggage even before this event, And it's one of those things where it was a bit of an epiphany for me also. I kind of think what happened is just two people that never should have gotten married ended up getting married. And I wasn't the man I needed to be to see that earlier. And instead, not only did we stay married 34 years, and I don't tell too many people this, but we actually divorced 4 times and we reconciled 3 times.
What? Hold it there. You divorced 4 times and reconciled?
Yeah, and it was the same lawyers and the same judge each time. And the third time, the judge was like, "Come on, guys." It was like, "Make up your minds. What's going on here?" You know? But we kept getting back together for the wrong reasons. And I could do a whole nother series with you on just what I went through during those separations. It was actually quite interesting. But finally, something happened when we had gotten back together the third time, and something flipped in my brain. And I said, you know what? This is going to sound silly to people listening. They're going to be like, after 3 times, you didn't figure this out. But something in my brain said, this just won't work. You know, this is never going to work. And so I filed the 4th time, and I told my lawyer, I said, I don't care what it takes. Just set her up for the rest of her life so she doesn't have to worry. And I'll go figure it out for myself. So just like I said, I would never have another business partner, I said, I'm never going to get married again. So 3 months later, I'm in Manhattan for a business meeting, one of the biggest business meetings of my life, it turned out. And I was alone, and I wanted fish. So I'm walking down Fifth Avenue, headed towards a restaurant. And I stop at a light, and next to me was this woman. And I said to her, I said, I know you probably get this a lot. I said, but you're the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. She looked up at me and she goes, many beautiful women in Manhattan. I felt kind of silly. I said, no, really, there's something about you. We stood there on that corner talking for 40 minutes, didn't cross the street. Finally, I said to her, I said, you know what? I was headed to dinner. You want to go have some dinner? And she says, what kind of food? I said, seafood. She goes, sure. So we went, we had dinner that night. We had dinner the next night. And then I had to fly back to Michigan to run my business. Some of my friends had been setting me up with blind dates. So I went out with like a few women. I'll never forget, I was at dinner with this one perfectly nice woman. And all I could think about was this woman I had met in New York. And so I politely excused myself and I went home and I called her. And we had like a video call. And I said to her, I said, it was Wednesday. I said, do you want to go out to dinner again Friday? She goes, you coming back to New York? It says, if you say yeah, I will. So I flew back and I was with her, actually have been with her now for over 3 years, almost every single day. And we got married last year. So.
Wow. And I remember I had the pleasure of meeting her briefly as your girlfriend in Las Vegas. And then last year, under some weird circumstances, if you remember that, I met her at your house. And wow, that's incredible. I didn't know the backstory to that.
She hates it when I tell that story. She's never going to be able to listen to this podcast because if she knows I told this story, she's going to kill me. You make it sound like you picked me up on the street. I said, I did pick you up on the street. She goes, but not like that. She goes, I'm going to tell people we met at a restaurant. And I said, tell them whatever you want. I don't care. I said to her, I said, we can live anywhere you want. Where do you want to live? We visited a lot of towns and she picked Las Vegas. And that's why we bought the house in Las Vegas. About a year later, my accountant said to me, here's your tax bill for, the year for federal taxes. I said, whoa. I said, what can we do to fix that? And he goes, well, you'd have to move to Puerto Rico where they don't have the federal taxes like that. And I said, 3 weeks later, I kid you not, 3 weeks later, we moved to Puerto Rico and we've been here ever since. So it's that would have been April of last year we moved here. So what is this, July? Yeah. And I love it here. So We're very happy.
I got to get out there to see you.
Oh yeah, come on down. I mean, we live right on the beach. It's always
Nice.
85 and sunny or partly cloudy. Every day we were either swimming in the ocean or in the swimming pool. And I pinch myself all the time because I just don't forget what it took to finally get here.
Yeah. So when somebody says you got there because you're lucky, I can see why you want to punch them in the head.
And that's also why I have very little patience with people that don't want to put in the work, or they just want you to give it to them, or they complain about every little obstacle. And you know what? As an entrepreneur, it's our job to go around, over, or through obstacles, right? What's an obstacle? It's an opportunity to reach a goal. And the people that don't get that drive me crazy. Right now, the big thing right now, as you probably know, is Amazon just reset the standard for storage limits based on your inventory score. If your inventory score is below a certain amount, they're not going to let you store as much. And people are really upset about this. And you know what people are really upset about that? The one that are running lousy businesses that can't control their inventory and they don't buy stuff that sells. Amazon's telling you need to fix your business. So instead of thinking it's a conspiracy theory, why don't you work on fixing your business? So that's the way I am. If somebody wants a hug and be told everything's okay, they go talk to Chris because Chris is really good that way. They don't talk to me because I'll just punch him in the face, like you say. Here's the cold hard truth. Are you ready? You ready, Snowflake?
All right.
I think we probably just lost some viewers there, Norm. I'm sorry.
Yeah, maybe one, but that's okay. I always say when somebody talks to me about, what does it take to be an entrepreneur? I mean, it sounds so simple, but I said, if you can get kicked between the legs the first time and get up, get kicked again and get kicked again, it gets easier to get kicked between the legs, but you got to keep getting up.
Wanting something is not enough. You must hunger for it. Your motivation must absolutely be compelling in order to overcome the obstacles that will inevitably come your way. Les Brown.
You nailed it.
So, I'm a no excuse kind of guy. If I can do this several times, I think people that are properly motivated will have a lot less trouble than I did. Nobody's going to have the kind of journey that I had. I would never wish it on anybody. I hope everybody starts and is successful immediately with no issues whatsoever. That's just not realistic.
Yeah. I know that we've been talking for quite some time, but if you were to give any advice to somebody that's listening to this, what are the character traits? And I know we started out with that motivational quote. What are the character traits that you think it takes to be a good entrepreneur?
I'm not sure if this is necessarily a character trait, but I believe one of the gifts somebody should have is the gift of resiliency for exactly what we've been talking about, right? As far as character goes, it's the same thing, a good work ethic, right? You have to be honest to yourself, really. Am I putting in the effort? Am I doing what needs to be done? And am I also creating the balance in my life that needs to be there? This was probably one of my biggest problems, especially the first 20 years of my marriage, was a lack of balance. You know how entrepreneurs can be? They're like, honey, I know I'm going to be working weekends again, but it's just until I make it. And eventually she would say to me, I think you've made it like 9 times. When's enough? Right? And for me, I wasn't balanced enough. So people need to be able to understand that it's about taking care of your body, taking care of your family, and then business, right? The priorities need to be straight.
Right. Okay, Todd. Well, we're winding down. the podcast, at the end of every podcast, I always like to ask our guests if they know a guy.
I think I do. This guy, his name, I know this guy, Jonathan Kronstedt. He's the president of a company called Kajabi. And never have I seen a guy be so successful with a company like that and be an overall great guy also. And he's got stories. So I know this guy, Jonathan Kronstedt. Call him Jay Kern.
What you call him? What?
Jay Kern.
Jay Kern. Okay. Well, we'll have to reach out to Jay Kern and see if we can get him on the show.
I'll give him a little prod too. I'll tell him it was completely painless. He won't talk about anything difficult at all.
Yeah, no, not at all. All right, my friend. So how do people get a hold of you? If you have that course available, how do they get a hold of that?
People that are interested on the way that we sell on Amazon with the wholesale model, we have a website. It's webinar.expertuniversity.com. And they can watch an informational presentation that we have. And if you have some links to like our public Facebook group that you can put out maybe later, that would be cool too. And that way we can interact and answer questions and get people headed in the right direction if they're interested.
We will definitely post those links. A lot of the times at the end of the episode, I'll say, hey, awesome. And we have awesome guests on. But this was different. You opening up and being so transparent, it hit a nerve. And, I just have to say, I thank you for being on the show. I thank you for being so open. I know it's tough. Anyways, thank you so much.
Like I said, Norm, you're a great guy. I wouldn't have done it for anybody else. And I want to thank you for the opportunity to come on here and be able to be transparent. So thanks, Norm.
You're very welcome, my friend.
That's it for our interview with Todd Snively. Make sure to tune in next week for our interview with Barry Cates. Barry is an expert in the field of experiential marketing. This includes immersive experiences created for the Super Bowl, for concerts, and even for some reality TV stars. We might talk about a certain famous chef whose name rhymes with Jordan Samsey. Anyway, make sure to tune in next time. You won't want to miss it.